From Canberra is the former Nationals leader, the former Deputy Prime Minister turned One Nation MP, Barnaby Joyce. Barnaby, welcome to News Breakfast.
Good morning, James.
Can we just start with the Nationals? You're not the leader of the Nationals, but some in the party still seem very keen to follow you in terms of policy at least. Are you expecting some of your former colleagues to defect to One Nation?
No, I don't. They're following is obviously the policies of One Nation, and they're following policies of One Nation because the policies obviously resonate with the community as reflected in the polls. Now, what this unfortunately seems to have done is seems to be a real sort of malaise, confusion, division within the coalition, and no longer the coalition, the Liberal Party and the National Party. I think it's unbecoming of the chamber. It looks a mess. And that is a shame for our democracy, because on a day where interest rates went up 3.6 to 3.85%, when people have had to borrow multiples of the household income to buy a house because of the pressure on the housing market, small changes make a big difference in people's disposable income. Yet the Labor Party were basically let off the hook yesterday, and that is a great concern. We've even got other issues out there. We've got China that basically said you can stick it up your jumper about taking Darwin Port off us. Yet wasn't one question about that, and I thought that would be very prescient in regards to national security. So they're following policy and hoping that they're seen as One Nation, I suppose, and that's just not going to work.
I just am curious as to your view about how life for you is going in One Nation. Do you think you're responsible for the surge in support your party is seeing?
No, but I'm definitely part of it. I think that I'm part of the, I'm not going to go with sort of faux modesty. I think I'm part of it, in that it gives people license that they have the capacity to, go to dinner and say, well, actually, I'm a One Nation voter, and other people say, well, yeah, well, so am I.
I'm just curious, sorry to interrupt, Barnaby, I'm curious about that. I mean, do you think that you've lent it a degree of acceptability that it did not have in the past?
I think I've added to it. I think it was on that journey in any case, but I think I've assisted in that process. Obviously, you've got to bring something to the party, otherwise, why would they accept you? And I believe I have, and I believe I've added to it, but the momentum was already there, and it's down to Pauline and Troy and Sean and Malcolm, who've done an exceptional job, and I'm joining the team to assist it. I do believe 100% that we should be more vigilant on who we bring into our nation before we have discussions about the possible changes to laws of how we kick them out. I think it's important there's a contractual relationship in coming to Australia, that you're not on social security and you're not in the crime pages. And there's also an absolute obligation on behalf of the government to not bring people into our nation if you don't have the capacity to absorb them. That is, you don't have the housing stock, you don't have the schools, you don't have the universities, you haven't built the dams, but you just bring in people in the hundreds of thousands, where quite obviously they end up in Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney.
You've been an advocate in your previous life as Deputy Prime Minister for immigration and things like that. I mean, just want to take you back to that. Filming people on the streets of Melbourne, looking at the colour of their skin, where they're from, that's not something you would associate yourself with, surely?
No, I don't. And I said that at the start, James, if you replay the video. So it's a case of there is, as I've said, but I repeat, there's a contractual relationship for coming to our nation, whether you come from the Vatican City or you come from another part of the world. If we're going to see you on social security or the crime pages, then that is not an asset to our nation. And secondly, we have to be more discerning about how people come in, and there has to be the capacity of our nation to absorb them. Otherwise, we're just going to put them in Sydney on your roads. They're going to be bidding for your houses. The same in Sydney, the same in Brisbane, the same in Melbourne. Your children will not be able to buy a house because the supply will have not met the demand. And this is what we have. We have supply constraints in our economy. And this is another thing that wasn't talked about. The Labor Party really focuses on the P&L. They're great at finding new expenses and shoveling money out the door to create the cash supply to feed inflation, but they're very, very bad at building the balance sheet up. And because you can't build the balance sheet up, you don't have the capacity in the economy to absorb the cash, and you don't have the capacity in the economy to supply the goods so that you keep inflation down. It's restrictions and regulations on the asset side of the balance sheet, and shoveling money out on the expense side, and borrowing money from overseas to try and make the equation work, so that you're basically indenturing your children to a form of loan servitude because they're the ones who are going to repay it, and that's incredibly unfair.
We should just point out economists have a lot of different views about what is driving the housing market. But I want to take you just to the issue of your new party. This is the first time we've had you on since you defected to One Nation. A lot of people have joined forces with Pauline Hanson over the years. I could go through the names, but it is a long list. They've then had a falling out for one reason or another. You are a pretty big personality. I reckon you'd probably concede that yourself. How can you be confident that things aren't going to end as they've done with Pauline Hanson in the past?
Well, that just comes down like everything. Like a marriage, you work on it, and you work on relationships. And, in the past, I've worked with Fiona Nash for a long period of time in a leadership role. I've worked with Bridget McKenzie. I think you have to go to other people who I've worked with at the highest level, except for Mr. Littleproud.
Well, Malcolm Turnbull, David Littleproud. I mean, there's a few, Barnaby. There's a few you've had a falling out with over the years.
I think I was always loyal to Malcolm Turnbull, even though we had our differences. I did the job of a deputy. I protected him. Until it became
Michael McCormack.
I wasn't his deputy.
Okay.
So that's a difference. And I think that, I've known Pauline for many, many years. And you don't go into these things blindly. We had discussions over a year just to basically test the chemistry, query on policies, and then we take the next step. And it's obviously a step the Australian people wanted because the polling reflects it.
Barnaby Joyce, we do appreciate you making time for us this morning.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.